Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming to this last session here. We have a full team from CarMax here to talk about personalization using from an algorithm perspective. So we have, Spencer, Carey, and Ashley from CarMax, and they're going to talk about that. So we'll give them a round of applause. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. Thanks for letting us be here. All right, so we are here today to talk about personalization and how we're applying data science at CarMax. Excited to share about some of the work that our collective teams are doing. A little bit more about us. So I have been with CarMax for 6 years. Prior to that, I was at Capital One, where I started my career. So I've been in this career since before it was a thing. Back before there was even a job family called data science. We were called statistical analysts at Capital One, at least, and I'm sure at other places too. Yes, Keith was there with me and maybe a handful of other folks. So I've been at this for a while. I really enjoy this career, really enjoy getting to work with other great people to solve problems, and excited, again, to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing at CarMax. Spencer, quick intro.
Yeah, so I am Spencer Kirn. I'm a senior data scientist here at CarMax. I've been here for a year and a half. Before I was at CarMax, I was a grad student at William & Mary, where I got my master's and PhD in data science. Outside of work, I would like to play Ultimate Frisbee. So if anyone wants to throw a plastic circle with me, come let me know.
Thank you. And I'm Carey Caginalp. I've been at CarMax for nearly a year and a half now. I work on a team adjacent from Ashley, so usually a little bit lower down the funnel from the customer perspective. Also glad to be here.
All right, you'll get to hear more from Spencer and Carey a little bit later. So CarMax, who are we? Talk a little bit more. Hopefully you guys are familiar with CarMax being a large company and employer here in the Richmond area. We are just 3 data scientists representing a broader community of data scientists, which is part of an even larger community of analysts. And I want to call out that when we are talking about our algorithms and a lot of the work that we deliver, we don't do that just with data scientists or analysts. We have a critical partner group of folks called machine learning engineers that we work with day in and day out to deliver the great results. And CarMax is a great place for analysts and data scientists and engineers to work. We're rich in data. We are the largest used car retailer in the nation, and a couple of the data points we're going to talk about later today are represented here. About 15.5 million vehicles sold in all time at CarMax. That leads to 300 million plus web and digital interactions, and a lot of other great data points here that generate awesome stuff for us to work on as data scientists. So today, this is the plan. We're going to talk a little bit more first about how we define personalization. Kind of like data science, personalization in and of itself is a bit of a buzzword, so I'm going to try to demystify, at least through the lens of how we think about it, what does personalization mean at CarMax? And then Spencer is going to talk specifically about how we use personalization to help customers that are browsing and shopping on their own. So you can think of this as somebody who is pulling up our website and clicking around, looking for cars, and trying to understand what they might be shopping for. Case 2 is around assisted shopping. So we don't necessarily want customers to have to do that by themselves. If they need help, we want to give them the right help at the right time. Carey's going to talk about that. And then finally, we'll wrap briefly with what does it all mean? Why are we doing this? Why is it an important part of our business? So what impact are we driving there? Those 2 cases are specific enough that if you have questions, we'll pause between case 1 and case 2 and at the close of case 2, so you can go ahead and ask your questions, or if you want to wait till the end, we can catch them there as well. All right. Personalization. It's not new at CarMax. We are a well-established, successful business that has been delivering a great experience for our customers for a long time. So if you think about a sales associate in any business is going to be able to hopefully talk to a customer directly, ask them, what brings you in today? what car do you drive now? How soon do you need to purchase? And then the sales associate's going to be able to tailor their kind of relationship and back and forth with that customer according to how that customer responds. We know that the world is changing, especially since COVID, at a very rapid pace. So consumer behavior has totally shifted. When you think about those sales associates, right, we cannot reach every customer with a sales associate and a one-on-one interaction. We need to be able to reach customers in mass when they're engaging with us on the website or calling in and talking to one of our associates in a call center. So I think this was a quick article I found with a couple of highlighted notes there that hopefully underline what you already maybe know about personalization and why it matters. Additionally, we know that customers interact with these digital experiences quite frequently, and those experiences are setting expectations that customers bring with them to every other interaction, especially digital interactions that they have. So when you think about Amazon and a customer, for example, I think last week or week before, I was shopping for a pair of shoes in Amazon. I had an idea of what I wanted. I went there, probably did some quick searching, saw what Amazon was recommending to me, maybe read some of their compare, might have looked at a few, recommendations to keep shopping around and build my confidence. That whole shopping experience probably took me 30 minutes. It was a low commitment purchase, right? Maybe spend $30 and know that that pair of shoes is gonna show up at my door in a couple days. That type of experience is pretty swift and again, pretty heavily influenced by the personalization that Amazon is providing. At CarMax, we experience this a little bit differently. Raise your hand if you've ever bought a car before, whether it be new or used. Okay, so does this image represent how you might feel about that process and how messy it can get? There's a lot of options. It's a large purchase that you're committing to, and therefore you want to make a confident decision. You want to make the right decision. You don't want to have buyer's remorse. These things are important to think about. For us, it can be a messy journey as well because a customer can start thinking about buying a car maybe 6 months, maybe even longer before they're actually ready to make that purchase. How do we know that that's that same person when they potentially browsed our website several months ago versus today they're really engaging, they're starting to take a next step forward with a particular car? So this is hard, but also does give us some interesting problems to work on, makes it really clear to us, how we can think about the impact of personalization at CarMax. So I'll take that messy line and try to simplify it. Again, this kind of forward motion, you should expect some of these iterations, people moving forward and then 2 steps back, but you can think about, or we do think about the customer journey in these more simple buckets. And when it comes to personalization, again, the kind of title of this talk is that we are personalizing the customer's experience throughout the journey. So I'm going to talk about a couple places where we're doing this. We always want to try to look at this through the lens of the customer. So the customer's doing a lot of this work. We want to remove some of that work. We're going to talk about jobs to be done and how that also shapes some of our work. To give you an example of some of the places where we're using data science to drive personalization, we've got targeted marketing algorithms that we're leveraging to help us reach the right customers, hopefully at the right time, and then ideally get them to engage with CarMax on our website. When they get to the website, we're trying to help give them obvious next things to consider. With sophisticated recommendations, Spencer's going to talk a little bit more about what we're doing in that space later. And in search, we want the customer to feel that we know what they're doing. We're watching them, we're giving them credit for the work that we're doing, and therefore we're putting more and more relevant things at the top of their search results. Carey's going to talk more about intelligent assistance. So when a customer reaches out, not every customer needs the same thing. One customer might want a really high-touch experience. Another customer might want a low-touch experience. This is something we talk about a lot at CarMax as we're going through a journey to become an omni-channel retailer. We used to be strictly brick and mortar, so there's a lot of change that has to come with that. And one of these key aspects is, again, we cannot give every customer that high-touch experience, and not every customer wants it. So we need to understand how to deliver the right help to the right people. And then finally, We have some algorithms that help us understand, especially when cars are moving around. We're a nationwide retailer, and we do help connect customers to cars that might be further from them. That is because it might be a more rare vehicle or some specific thing that they're looking for. We want to continue to build off of the confidence, right? Give them an idea, when is that car going to get to you if you're transferring a vehicle, especially if you've paid money for that transfer, right? We're helping them know that we're monitoring that. We have an idea of when it's going to get to them so that they feel excited about that big day when it gets here. CarMax is positioned to outmatch our competitors. So this is another really exciting aspect, again, calling back to that prior data slide. We have more data. We have more traffic in terms of people engaging with us on our website and in other ways, and we can personalize at scale. So I'm excited for Spencer and Carey to talk a little bit more about some of these two cases that we're doing today. And like I said, if you have questions before we get into Carey's section, we'll pause for a minute to let you guys ask there. With that, I'll hand it off to Spencer. At the back.
All right. Good. All right.
He said thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. So I.
Oh.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we help customers while they're shopping on our website. So we often frame these up as what are the jobs to be done.
Turn ours off.
All right. There we go. All right. All right. So we usually we always try to frame this up as what are the jobs to be done. So the job to be done by the customer is pretty straightforward. Identify the best car at the best price for you or for them in their specific situation, whether that's at CarMax or at one of our competitors. That means that at CarMax, we have two jobs to be done. One is to help our customers navigate our vast inventory, usually around 50,000 cars spread throughout the country, to deliver them relevant vehicles at the right time. And then two, provide our expert guidance to help them build confidence in CarMax and convince them that we are the best company for them to purchase their next vehicle with. But as we build out data science tools in this used car market, we have a lot of unique challenges that a lot of other e-retailers don't have. For one, cars are rare purchases. At the most often, you might be buying a car once every few years. So every single time a customer comes onto our website, it's a cold start problem. We don't know anything about them. And if they had purchased with us before, that may have been 3 or 4 years ago. So how relevant is that information still now? It's also a long shopping journey, as we alluded to before. You might go into your car buying journey thinking one thing, and then after doing some research, completely pivot over to a different type of vehicle. And so this means that we need to be agile and able to adapt to the changing needs of our customers, and so provide that personalization to help them along. And then finally, all of our products are completely unique. Every single used car is its own unique snowflake. Even 2016 Toyota Camrys might have different features, different miles, different colors, all of this. So we cannot use a lot of the traditional SKU level statistics that a lot of other online retailers use to develop their recommendation products. But even through all this, we do still provide a lot of key personalization in those moments that matter. So we have two main flagship models. Our first one here is the vehicle recommender. So if you're looking at this 2017 Jaguar F-Pace, and you scroll down to the bottom, you will see two different ribbons. The first one, the top ribbon, is the most similar vehicles to the car page that you're on. So in this case, it's the most similar vehicles to that Jaguar F-Pace. It's generally going to be other Jaguar F-Paces. And then below that are specific recommended vehicles based on your click history. So if you've been clicking on a lot of these other luxury SUVs, you should expect to see expect to see a nice variety of that same kind of vehicle. We also have Best Match. So Best Match is our custom sorting algorithm. This is how we decide what cars land first from a search query. So if you search for a Toyota Camry, do we put up the 2023 high trim with all the bells and whistles Toyota Camry, or do we put on that 2014 more affordable Camry? And this is all designed to help our customers navigate all of our inventory more efficiently. And in all of this, there are two keys that we need to measure, and we need to use our data to calculate. The first one is what makes two vehicles similar. What makes them dissimilar? We can all say, a Toyota is different than a Ford, is different than a Tesla, but how can we say that the Toyota and the Ford are more similar than they are to that Tesla? And then also, how can we understand what customers are trying to tell us? And as Ashley said, we are uniquely positioned to do that because we have so much data. We have over 5 million unique vehicles have come through our stores, so we have a good understanding of the used car market, where it has been, where it is, and where it's going. We also get about 800,000 unique web visitors every single day, and those web visitors drive 15 million web interactions a day. And so this gives us a really keen understanding of customer behaviors and what influences customers to buy different vehicles. And so as I said, a lot of this is trying to drive or is trying to understand vehicle similarity, both vehicle-to-vehicle similarity and vehicle-to-user similarity. And traditionally, a lot of online retailers use collaborative filtering. That's like a very common model. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Netflix. They use, or their recommendations model that has been so powerful uses collaborative filtering. Essentially what this does is, it looks at every single person who watched Shrek 2, and then it takes all those people and looks to see what other movies those people watched, and then uses that to recommend those movies to me as soon as I finish watching Shrek 2. However, at CarMax, we can't do that because, again, once we sell one used car, that car's gone. So we don't have any other similar purchases or similar interactions to that car. We can look at web clicks and all of that, but that is a whole lot noisier. So how do we say a BMW 530i is more similar to a 650i than it is to a Ford F-150 or a Ford Edge? And so for that, over the last year, we have been developing this model that we have called vehicle vectors. And so this morning in the keynote, we talked a whole lot about large language models, ChatGPT. A lot of those are built on word embedding systems like rvatech, which I'm sure several people in here are at least somewhat familiar with. But what rvatech does is it creates an abstract embedding system where we can represent a complex human concept, in this case human language, as a mathematical vector. So in this example, we have the word queen and woman. Those are both represented by some point in space. And then we can transform those into king and man, and we should see that same semantic similarity between those words through that embedding. Well, we can do the same thing with vehicles to create a really nuanced understanding of what our full vehicle inventory looks like, and get very, very minute differences between a 2016 Jeep Wrangler that has these features and this many miles versus the same make model trim that is slightly different. And all of this is based on well over 25 million customer interactions. So it's very well tuned to know what people are shopping for and what about a vehicle drives people's interest. And so here's kind of an example of what this embedding space looks like. It's a very high dimensional embedding space that I've crammed down into 3 dimensions. And I had an animation, but I tried it in like four other presentations and it never worked, so I gave up on it. So this is a screenshot. So each dot in this is a vehicle in the CarMax inventory. The green here we see are pickup trucks. Blue represent SUVs, and then the gold are sedans and also some hatchbacks. So we can see that those pretty clearly make three distinct clusters within the inventory. But we can actually dig down a bit deeper and look. And if we just look at those SUVs, we can see even more finely tuned clusters. So here's my favorite one: the Jeep Wranglers. They're way off to the side because Jeep people buy Jeeps and they only look at Jeeps. So even within this, we can say, there might be 15, 20 Jeep Wranglers in there, but within those, we can tell very small differences between those. Over here, we have Jeep Grand Cherokees. They make another pretty tight cluster, pretty close to those Wranglers, but just far enough away that we are able to identify that cluster. Over here, we have very large SUVs. It's kind of the broad generic definition I made for it. It's GMC Yukons, Ford Expeditions, those giant SUVs. And then over here, luxury SUVs, think like the Lexus NX, Acuras, those kinds of vehicles. And we could keep doing this throughout here, but I won't bore you with all of that. But now, not only do we have this dense embedding space for our vehicles, but now we can also put our customers within that space to very quickly and efficiently identify what are the most similar vehicles to that customer based on their shopping journey. So here, if we have some generic user, they've done these 4 clicks, we can physically put them in that same space and say, all right, this user has clicked on these 4 cars. They're here. As they keep going about the site, their user vector will shift and change with their shopping behavior, and eventually should asymptotically approach what would be their ideal vehicle. So then as they're shopping, we can say, okay, here are the most similar vehicles we have to you, and that would give them very granular personalization. And we have this currently on our site. We have this running on our best match model, and again, that's the custom sorting algorithm. So when you type in SUV or whatever, how do we decide what vehicles to put there for you? And so because we have our real-time click ingestion, we can pass that into the sorting algorithm, and as the customer does more and more actions, we can get a more and more granular personalization for them. So early on, we might try to get really generic, show them a wide variety of vehicles, let them kind of decide what direction they want to go in, and as they tell us more and more about what they're interested in, we can add more and more personalization in there. But as we referenced before, shopping journey is never straightforward. So really, what this might look more like is this: as they start shopping, clicking around, we can get more personalized. If they pivot, we can back that off, and then add in more personalization as they keep going. So this really allows us to give that highly personalized approach to each one of our shoppers. And here's kind of a really brief example of this in action. So here, this is very early in the journey. I hopped on the website and I just took a screenshot of a completely blank search. I went to the search bar and I hit enter and didn't touch anything, and this custom sorted our full inventory for me. And we have a pretty wide variety of vehicles here. There's some sedans. There's that Jaguar F-Pace, in case you're wondering where I got that screenshot from, and then a few SUVs at the bottom. I then did a whole bunch of clicks on a bunch of pickup trucks, and then I did the same search, and now it looks like this. So now the site understands that I'm interested in purchasing a pickup truck, so there's no reason to show me a Honda Accord. We should really be trying to tailor that search result to our customers in the same way that our in-store associates would. And so with that, we'll take some questions before I pass it over to Carey.
You had I'm trying to remember the names of the two algorithms you were using.
Yeah.
Best match?
Best match, yeah.
And what was the other one?
Recommender.
Recommender.
Yeah.
Which one of those is more heavily used or more successful for your customers?
That's an interesting question. Best match is probably used more often. I don't know. You might have a better idea of the actual figures on that.
Yeah, so I think that certainly is dependent on placement, like where and how is the customer going to encounter those experiences on the website. We have about 500,000 visitors that use our search page, or maybe it's visits to search every day. So yes, best match being integrated into search is a very heavily used. It's the default. A customer can change it to a different sorting order, like low to high price. I'm sure you guys have experienced that in your shopping experiences. But yeah, best match for sure is heavily used. It needs to be highly performant. Recommender, meanwhile, is further down a product page as one example of where recommendations exist on our website. We still have tight SLAs for that, but there's a little more wiggle room in terms of performance time for what it needs to meet.
Thank you. One more question.
Hi. So I was wondering, when you were talking about like the embeddings you're creating, do you only use like car features when you're creating those embeddings, or do you also, or is it like based on like the unique car ID? So I'm wondering, do you have a downtime from a new car comes in, you retrain your model, you can see that model reflected on the embeddings, or is it just using like car features like maker, model, miles, or something?
Yeah, so we very intentionally made sure that we just used car features, not the unique car ID, because we wanted to make sure that once a new car came into inventory, we did not have that cold start problem where we have to wait for people to interact with it.
Do you bucketize those features so like you have overlaps where like multiple cars can have the same embedding, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, like if there are two Toyota Camrys that have the same amount of miles and features and all of that, they would have the exact same embedding.
Okay, thank you.
Very rare though. All right, with that, I'll pass it on off to Carey.
All right, thanks, Spencer. I need the clicker too. Got multiple things to manage here. So thanks, Spencer. We just heard a lot about our first case with remote shopping. There's also another very important case of assisted shopping, because many times customers might need or want, have a preference to have a little bit more help in their journey. So here in the assisted shopping sphere, the jobs to be done are to help customers be able to complete their journey effectively and efficiently. So what we need to do is identify customers who would benefit from assistance. We need to provide those customers with the right kind of help. Some people prefer to interact with digital channels. Some people really want to talk to a human. And we have to provide that help at the right time and not be bothering them at a point where they're not ready for it. And then finally, tailoring the online experience, personalizing it to each customer in order to help them progress. So assisted shopping has some unique challenges. Ashley asked earlier about many of you, and we saw that many of you had purchased a car before. Somewhat ironic, but even though I've worked at CarMax for a year and a half, I've never bought or owned a car before. So you can imagine my car buying experience might be very different from a lot of you. Customers also have varying ability to navigate, self-navigate, and finance, different preferences about how much help that they might want, different amounts of familiarity with digital technology in general, and different timelines. Some customers might be ready to buy very soon. Others might be looking at it, further out. The customer journey is also very complex, as we touched on. There's many steps. It can be very nonlinear. It's very different from the purchase that Ashley was mentioning with if you're buying a pair of shoes, you roughly know what you want, and you're not going to put a huge amount of investment into that purchase a lot of the time. So different kinds of help can be needed and at different points in the customer journey. So at CarMax, we have built out infrastructure to continuously update our customer journey intelligence as well as recommendations to help optimize self-progression and assistance for customers. So we have a wide collection of different data points. Some of them are real-time, like customer activity and engagement on the website, and some are more historic. For example, if someone's bought a car with us before. And we use the data that we have in the moment to be able to update and personalize the customer experience in the way that someone might like. We do this through a broad model suite, predicting things like transaction propensity, the customer need for help, and different steps in the customer journey. So one use case of this is a team assignment model where we use to get customers the right kind of help. At CarMax, we have many different teams that help provide assistance to the customers, from things like expert guidance to general support, things like paperwork, as well as in-store guidance if a customer comes to the store. And customers may be looking for different things at different times. And the reason why this is important is that there are several benefits that it conveys. First, in terms of customer experience, if you've ever called into a company and explained about a complicated issue that you needed help with, you might have had the experience that someone said, oh, great, let me just transfer you over to a department that can help you with that. Then you have to repeat yourself all over. That's not a great customer experience, so it's something that we strive to avoid. It also conveys a benefit in terms of efficiency. If we're not having multiple associates talk to the same customer and repeating themselves, then we can help optimize our cost structure and be able to help more customers. And in this way, we can pass the savings along to customers and deliver more value. So in terms of how team assignment works, generally there's a signal that comes in. This can be a very tangible thing, like a customer picks up their phone and picks up their phone and calls us looking for help, or it can be something a little bit more generic. When the signal occurs, we pass the information that we have about a customer through a scoring algorithm. So we might have seen that the customer had some web activity, maybe they called us previously a couple days ago, and so on. And through our model, we can determine what kind of help that they'll likely need. So this could be several different kinds. It could be that the customer is naturally progressing along their journey and they don't need any help at the moment. It could be that they may need some digital help, so talking through us through a chat platform or an email. Or it could be that they really need and desire to talk to a human, in which case we want to make sure that that happens. And a subset of that is which specialty that they're likely to need help with. So to close out this section, I'd like to say that CarMax has some exciting current and future use cases here. There's optimizing our customer journey experience. There's unlocking things like self-progression and alternative delivery options. For example, one can have a car delivered to your home or arrange for express pickup. Some customers are more interested in these offerings than others, so we want to ensure that we target the offerings and give the option to customers that are most likely to be interested in those. And then finally, optimizing our customer experience centers for efficiency and effectiveness, particularly when we're in a constrained environment. So with that, I'll ask if there are any questions on this section.
This is probably more of a general question. You mentioned customer experience like 6 times. So how are you all measuring the customer experience in terms of how effective it is, and have you gone down the path of kind of connecting better customer experience with value from the company's perspective?
Yeah, so we've definitely looked into that a bit. One metric, for example, is looking at future interactions down the funnel if they need to call back multiple times. Another metric is if someone needs to be transferred, then that was not an ideal experience, so improving on that. We also look at some higher level metrics like NPS, but that's a little bit harder to disentangle from all of the different stages in the customer journey. And sometimes it's not clear what one specific step did, but we do look at those things in general.
One more question and before we move on. Yeah.
Thank you. Just very specific question. What kind of tool as a data science team are you using right now at CarMax? And follow-up question for Ashley, compared to Capital One days as stats, what's the differences in terms of tools and also other part of the scientist team, if you can elaborate on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so we use general machine learning models and so on. I can't really go into the details because a lot of this is proprietary, but I'll let Ashley speak to that a little bit more.
Thanks, Carey. We, if you caught the other great CarMax presentation earlier today from Computer Vision, they did share, we use Azure, and so that's our, we are in the cloud. Data science work, I would say 98, 99% of what, maybe a little less. We still connect with other analysts who may not all be in the cloud, but cloud-based computing, developing algorithms using notebooks, a lot of other tools that are out there, and then partnering with our engineers to productionize those model objects. So one of the great things about a tool we use called Databricks is that it's not specific to a single coding language. So within a single notebook, you can even pivot between languages like R, SQL, Python, Scala, Spark. So there's I think a lot of skills that the data science developer around PySpark, learning how to kind of get between Python and Spark. I will comment on the Capital One question if that was a sufficient enough answer on the types of tools we're using. And I think you asked, how do the tools differ, maybe some of how the data science or stats culture or sort of community focus differs. I have a spouse that still works at Capital One as a data scientist, so I'm in touch with how that's going now too. Both places are great places to work. I think the value of getting to be a data scientist in a community of many other data scientists is really hard to replicate if you're, kind of in a small group. It's not that you can't learn and grow there, and there's some really great opportunities that you can take even with small companies, but based on my experiences there, that's the thing that I have always valued the most about what I experienced when I started at Capital One, and then what we've been continuing to build and grow towards here at CarMax. Tools, back in the day when I started at Capital One, it was SAS, and I don't mean software as a service. I mean SAS, the statistical programming language and software. So I learned a lot there, had to kind of pivot my skill sets over the years, and don't do a lot of coding myself these days. I get to lead some great people who are doing lots of great work in that front, but experiences in both places have been really great for me in my career.
Thank you very much. Now, do you guys have more to present, or can we take more questions?
I got a couple more slides to close out, and then if there is time, we can. Thank you. All right, so to bring it home, we did talk about and hear about a couple of key cases. These are not exhaustive of all the things that we do, but a great sampling to give you a taste of how we try to create great experiences for our customers throughout the shopping experience. So you heard today about remote shopping, how we try to help customers, especially when you're dealing with paradox of choice, customers that may not understand how to speak car. We want to do some of that work for them and reflect the work and the progress that they're doing to give them a great experience online with personalized recommendations and results in search. And then Carey talked a lot about how we leverage data in both of these cases, but I'll play it out even more in Carey's example, right? A customer may call in. That could be a customer that has a rich history with CarMax. Maybe they've bought several cars with us before, or maybe they have been calling in multiple times or spending a lot of time. We could know a lot about them through the CarMax data, and we're trying to be opportunistic about leveraging as much as what we know about a customer. At the same time, there's a customer who we may know very little about. Still, we want to use what data we can know to drive the right decisions and hopefully be reflecting back to the customer that we're here to help. Why do we do this? Because it drives key metrics for us. So yes, it's a large company. We have about 30 million visits to our website every day. And it can feel sometimes, hey, if you move the needle in small ways, like get more people to spend a bit more time on your website, that's going to help drive ultimately more people getting a bit further in the process, actually reserving a vehicle, committing to a car and taking a next step, and then ultimately trickle down into sales. So one of the key things that I meant to add to this slide and didn't have time to was going back to Keith's question and how Carey answered it. like driving net promoter score, NPS is another aspect here, things that help us measure, hey, is it a better customer experience? It's not just about selling the cars, but about how do we make this experience better and better, especially as our business is changing so much. And we're accelerating what we're doing in this space as data scientists and machine learning engineers. We are building more algorithms. We are releasing enhancements to these algorithms on a pretty regular basis. We're exploring new sources of data that we can expose our algorithms to make them smarter. And we're doing this in an iterative way where we test those enhancements almost every time. Maybe sometimes it's not entirely possible depending on the environment, but test and learn, validate those learnings so that we know we're moving in the right direction. It's an exciting space to work in. Thank you. Thank you, Carey and Spencer, as well. Nice job on your sections. Any questions before we close out? If there's time, Aaron.
Yeah, a few minutes. I think a couple, so 3 minutes. Yeah, so questions, anyone? Okay. You're at CarMax, so I was holding out for you last because I figured you just email them or Slack them or whatever you guys use over their teams. I don't know.
Hi. So as you mentioned on the computer vision part, we were doing very similar stuff on the generative models, and what we found out is because we're dealing with a lot of cars which are very similar, there exists a topological manifold that you can embed those images to. However, my question was, whenever you were discussing the similarity, like how close something is to something, what distance metric did you use? Are we talking about Euclidean distance? Because if it's a Swiss roll, something being close Euclidean is not necessarily close in terms of, so that's just like my question. What kind of distance metric did we use there?
For vehicle vectors, we generally use cosine similarity. We have also used Euclidean distance at times, but I've had more success with cosine similarity.
Question? All right. You raised your hand first, I believe, so. Yes, sorry.
So mine is about, so when you're training these models or you have an objective from the customer side, which is the buyer, is there any attempt in terms of like KPIs or primary metrics to balance the seller side as well? Because you have an ecosystem that you're trying to balance. So you don't necessarily want everyone to have you want a sale, but not necessarily the highest sale, but then people still want to sell their car. So maybe kind of talk about what kind of metrics you're using to balance that.
I'll ask for one clarification. So before you take the mic away, are you asking about, so CarMax as a business, yes, customers can come to us to sell their car, and that is a way, that's one channel through which we acquire vehicles that we may then sell to our customers that are purchasing. Is that what you're asking about, the difference between how we.
Perhaps, yeah, I was a bit unfamiliar. I was expecting, I guess, but then it becomes, still just balancing this, because you have it's just, the customer experience is a lower price, but you obviously want to sell it for the highest price. So, like, is there what are, like, the guardrail metrics you have around your primary metric that can help balance this?
Okay, so I think now, and again, I could be wrong, but from a customer's eyes, they want a great deal, right? And so if the price is lower, then presumably that maybe makes a better customer experience. Is that fair for what you're saying? Okay. So we have a great team at CarMax called our pricing systems team that spends a lot of time thinking about how to be a profitable business and how to understand, what can move or what cannot move. It's also been a very volatile market. And so balancing, like the customer experience, what experience are we trying to drive? What do we hold dear? And that CarMax was founded in a way where a core value there is, we're not the typical used car sales company. We're trying to give a fair deal. There is no negotiating because the price is the price, and really disrupting the market at that time. So those things have to be weighed with, how do you still be a profitable business that has a lot of operating costs while delivering that great customer experience. So my answer to that simply was, there's a very smart team of data scientists and engineers that think about pricing.
All right, thank you very much. We're out of time. I want to thank the team for their presentation. They were so persuasive about 3 cars while we were sitting here. It's amazing. But let's give them a hand for the time.
Great, thank you.